here's Brody Brazil.
Back at the Super Bowl earlier this calendar year, we got a sneak peek at the brand new graphics package for the NFL on Fox. And when people saw this for the first time, it totally threw them off for a number of different reasons. Like, where's the boundary here of this scorebug or scorebox? You know, this sits on the screen pretty much the entire game, but it's just numbers on nothing. We haven't seen that since like the 60s or 70s or 80s when there wasn't even the technology to make pretty rectangles and gradients and transparencies. We can do anything we want now, and all of a sudden we're going back to simplicity. Also, the big letters here, KC and PHI for Philadelphia. It's just so big and bold. And yes, I understand that these score bugs are meant to be readable from a far distance away. And I also understand that we're trying to eliminate clutter here on the bottom of the screen. We're trying to make this pretty simplistic, but there's no border, there's no boundary. It almost looked like, and people did make this comment and statement and observation, it almost looked like a Photoshop layer was missing here. Did they forget to install the entire graphics look into this score bug? We'll show you the entire thing. I'll revisit how these new Fox graphics look in just a second, but this is what caught everybody's eye. By the way, it's not uncommon that networks do this when they get to host the Super Bowl, like 59 down in New Orleans. The network that hosts the Super Bowl a lot of times implements their brand new graphics package for that Super Bowl and then starts it off officially with the next season. And that is what's happening with Fox, more on their updated look. Like, they're doubling down on minimalism and simplicity. And I'll show you what they just debuted for this upcoming season this past weekend for a Bears game at Soldier Field in Chicago. But first, let's revisit what other common score bugs and boxes look like. We've got NBC, we've got Netflix, we've got CBS, and we've got ESPN here as examples. And look, these are all kind of rectangles, and this one's got, I don't know, the Netflix look, but they're all shapes, right? And there are defined borders. And all of these numbers here, they sit on backgrounds so that you can read the teams that are playing, usually the amount of time that's on the clock, and the score from a very far distance away, right? That's the goal of a score bug, at least a good score bug. Not only to update the viewer on what's going on with the game situation, but also that you can be a certain distance away or have the game on mute. You can see this at a sports bar from across the way. But these are all common, right? We've kind of become accustomed to seeing something that looks, again, like this, with a border and with a boundary. And every score bug has, in football, the down situation, the time of the clock, the game clock. It's got the quarter situation. It's got the play clock. It's got both teams and their scores. It also has those little dashes right there. And every one of these has the dashes, no matter where you want to find them for timeouts remaining. And they're displayed in different ways. Like the ESPN one is long and narrow. I'd say that the Netflix one doesn't need to be that wide, but it's a little shorter and fatter. Sometimes they include the logos. All of these do. Sometimes they don't include the logos. It's just the three-letter identifier of the team. But basically, right, this is what we're used to. And the goal of a score bug, the goal of any score bug is to not only see it from a far distance away, but it's to interpret this game situation quickly and easily. You should be able to take one peek at that and in 2 seconds understand pretty much exactly what's going on with the game. Who's got the ball, where the game's at, story of the game, and what is the actual play that's about to happen. So with all that understood, let's now revisit the update for the NFL on Fox and their brand new graphics package for 2025. Again, this is the Bills and Bears from Soldier Field just last night as I'm recording this. So Fox has decided that they're going to keep the simplicity. They're going to change out the identifiers and those like rectangular blocks that were right here. And you know what? I can even do this effect. The blocks, watch this, are gone. So now, it's pretty cool, right? It's just the team logos on the screen. But it's those scores sitting on pretty much nothing. I say nothing. But savvy viewers will notice this. Look at the color of the field right here and right here. Looks pretty green, like brighter green. Same thing with over here and over here. But you can kind of see that Fox has added a little bit of a black or a gray gradient behind all of this to make this pop more. Does that make sense? Graphic designers will know what I'm talking about here. But you can kind of see a little shadow and shading. That's probably the best way to put it so everybody understands. Shadow and shading behind all of this so that it stands out. Because right here on a green field, not necessarily a problem. But when it's a busy shot and there's fans and there's a crowd, it might be hard to interpret those numbers. See how the 1st and 10 and the 17 seconds on the play clock, that's got a background, it sticks out. When there's no background, it doesn't stick out. So they've tried to add that little dark gradient behind all of this to make it more readable. What do I think about all this, by the way? I mean, I've got preferences. I've been in television production for a very long time. Is this a good thing? Is this the trend of the future? I will save my thoughts for the very end of this video. Do you like this? Do you hate this? Put it in the comments section right now while you're watching. Keep watching, but I want you to throw in your comments while they're probably still fresh. So this is what the NFL on Fox is doing, and it kind of matches the larger look of minimalism and simplicity. I go back to the Super Bowl, and it's not just the score bug. You understand that the graphics package entails, something like this, what's called a lower third. So if the screen is divided into thirds, this is information that sits on the lower third of the screen. This is a lot of text right here for having no background. Typically and traditionally, we don't see a lot of this in television anymore. There's always some type of gradient. Now, the other thing about it is I wish that some of this were even forced down lower on the screen. In fact, you know what? I want to go back to the score bug for just 1 second. I should have also mentioned this. One preference for me would be all of that right there moving literally as far down as it can. Because, how do I say this? Back in the day, when there were tube televisions and they were a little bit curved, you had to have something called screen safe. Basically, you couldn't put your graphics anywhere outside that box because it wasn't guaranteed you'd see it on the screen because the old televisions were bendy and curvy at the edges. I know, we don't even have that anymore. Everything's a flat screen. That means you can use graphic pixels all the way down to the very bottom of the screen. I would have liked to have seen this pushed down even more. Like if you're really buying in to minimalism and cleaning up the screen, then yeah, push everything down. Even push the NFL on Fox little bug up here. Push that up to the far corner as far as you possibly can to make it create more screen space. Anyway, we've already seen this again. That's a lot of text on a screen. They do have that little black or gray gradient there on this graphic. They didn't have it on their score bug. So now that kind of seems to be a common trend that they are trying to darken up the background behind a lot of things. I mean, even when player information or stats here are shown on a screen, I mean, look, here's a player's white pants, right? So you have white text over the white pants. And now you can really start to see the shadows here and how important they are. But can you read all of that from a distance? Like, I know you're probably watching this on a phone. I heard a lot of you, by the way, are watching my videos on like Apple TV devices on your big screens. I love that. So maybe you can read this a lot more easier. But that's a lot of text, and that's a lot of small text with no background. I mean, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of text here, and it gets pretty small, not to mention player's position and number and the whole cartoon. So does this need something more? Like, is the approach for minimalism being conflicted by throwing too much information on the screen? This was going to a commercial break when the Eagles were up 17-0. Just a couple minutes before halftime there, Saquon's like, yep, we got this thing in the bag, right? So, this makes sense to me, right? Hit you over the head. It's blatant. It's obvious. You want to just remind people, here's the score. We're back after this. That one's pretty simple. There's not a lot that you can mess up with this, although it is kind of big and bold. Even when Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady appeared on screen during the Super Bowl, their graphics had no background, by the way. 7-time Super Bowl champion, Kevin Burkhardt, NFL on Fox. Like, this is my job title, and this is something pretty much nobody else may ever get or achieve again in modern times. But again, they keep the theme simple across the board. Even when they put this up, it's called a slate. And a lot of times it's information or stats between two teams. I do think that when you see more of this for the upcoming season, it's going to be the team's logos in there rather than, we don't need KC and Chiefs or PHI and Eagles. They could simply put the team's logos there and all the stats and make that even more condensed and simplistic. But see how they put a background for ball control? Like possession and who's had the football more in the game? It's weird, right, that they decided that needed a background and all these numbers needed a background. But when they put the score up on the screen, that does not need a background. I do like this, and I do think that keeping things in the middle of the screen and on the bottom of the screen like Fox has done. I mean, we were used to Fox when their bug started in the top left. We've seen a lot of networks put the bug top middle. Bottom middle, I think, is a good place to be because then you can build out, who's punting, who's the kick returner. You can build out these stats on both sides of the screen. You can play your score bug into almost like a lower third all in once. And now you've got all this information up on the screen in a very convenient way at the very same time. A different look at going to break. But see, this is where when you don't have a background or a gradient, right? So now the Eagles are up 24-0 before halftime. And see how this kind of just blends and bleeds into that photographer in the background? By the way, is that a Canon 1DX back there? Is that the camera he's using? Anyway, long story short, I got a little distracted there. You can see that this right here, it doesn't stand out. It doesn't pop. It doesn't hit. If it were on this background, which is just a solid color, no problem. You can read this from a mile away. That's hard to read. So in my opinion, I love the simplicity. I love the attempt here, but you still have to accomplish the number one goal, make it easy and quick to digest. That's a lot of stats for Patrick Mahomes here on the screen. I don't know. I'm not against that. I think the cartoon is a little bit unnecessary here during an actual play. Like if you want to isolate on somebody between snaps, that's fine. If you want to throw that up, that's fine. I don't know if we need that right then, right there, but I do appreciate the stats as they're being presented. This helps the viewer whose eyes are over here on the line of scrimmage, but it's a quick peek here, and then it's a quick peek back up here. When the play actually, and there's obviously 17 seconds left on the game clock, the play clock. But you understand my point is that these are good ideas. These are good implementations of the simple graphics package. It's just that you got to make sure that above anything else, it's easy to read and understand. This one's fine for me. It's only 3 lines. I think when you get to that 4th line, that's when there's too much text without a background. And during the halftime show, it's crazy, right? They went to more of a traditional look. It's an interesting breakaway. I thought you were going simplistic. I thought you were going no backgrounds, no gradients. They did this for the halftime show. So are they completely done with gradients? What exactly is the long-term plan here? Because this looks a lot more like traditional television graphics that we saw in the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and into the 2020s. So my overall thoughts, you've waited long enough for me to get to this. I do appreciate the attempt, right? Because I do think that this is the future trend. I think that networks are going to try and clean up screen space. They're going to try and use transparency a little bit more. They're going to try and use glassier type, not classier, well, classier and glassier type effects and textures. They're trying to modernize the look. They don't want this to look like when Fox started showing games in, I don't know, was it like 1991 or 92 or 90? They want to try and continuously modernize the look. And simplicity and minimalism are at the core of that. And also the resolution of screens, right? Like we've got 4K and pretty soon 8K screens, so we can actually put a ton of detail now in places that we couldn't before. I do think for the update, the NFL logos, they're all recognizable. I don't really think we need, this on the big part of our screen. We don't need that. Like we can see from a mile away what these two teams' logos are. We don't need those big, bold, boxy letters. I think logos in the NFL can easily replace those. The dark gradient, definitely that you saw on the new score bug, it helps it pop more. So they have made improvements. They've changed out the identifiers for logos. Background is a gradient. I just want it to be a little bit lower on the screen. And again, I do think that this is the future trend. But do you like this? Do you hate this? Will this bother you in the upcoming season? Most people have only seen one football game. Like, I doubt you're watching the Bills and Bears on Fox last night. But most people have only watched the Super Bowl with these graphics. Are you prepared to watch a ton of NFL games on Fox with these brand new graphics? Let me know what you think about them in the comment section below. Also, thumbs up while you're down there. That helps me, this video, this channel. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you back here next time.